Voices blending, melodies ascending, harmony in the air. Our songs are never ending. In the barbershop we create magic. Brad and John show, yeah, it's pure classic. No instruments needed, just our vocal range. Notes flying high, it's our musical exchange. Tracy's station may try, but they can't compete. Our barbershop style, it can't be beat. Oh, the harmony of voices, so sweet. In the barbershop of life, our tunes will repeat. No need for instruments, no need for a band. Just the Brad and John show, the finest in the land.
Ah, yes, the Brad and John show. You know, on Friday when I'm all pumped up, I sort of hate to do that mellow thing, but you know what? That's tradition now, and we have to make at least one of our listeners happy. Right, John?
Yeah, well, it's 3 if you include my multiple personalities.
That is John Combest. And in a moment, we are going to get into this top 3. But I just wanted to reference the fact that I want to promote what I'm going to be talking about in B Block, which is this. We're in A Block right now. By the way, this is February 7th. Whoa, hold on a minute. I just fall off my stool.
Was that the helium tank, bro?
Yeah, February 7th. This is A Block. We start it right around 7 o'clock. Okay, first off, in B Block, I will talk about Ricky Schroeder and his election bill. I will talk about 911 call, which I made again last night. I would talk about. I bet
you did, Brad. Did you see a cat up in a tree?
No. I will talk about Adam Schnelting. I will talk about Brad at the ENT. I will talk about the post office. And I will talk about the FAA and the NTSB. Okay, but most importantly, in the A Block, we have this guy who comes in, and what does he do? We bring him in with this song on Friday morning.
Time for the John Combest Top 3.
Yes, the John Combest Top 3. John Combest, every single day of his life for the past 23 years, puts together this extensive list of all the important things you should know about. It's everything in the state of Missouri that you should know about government-wise, all sorts of stuff like that. He touches on municipalities from time to time when he feels like it, but most of the time it's statewide stuff, and it's on his website at johncombest.com. And we start off with this guy. What's your name again, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And we start off with?
In third place.
Brad, I'm going to ask you to put your trademark humility and humbleness aside for just one yes or no question. Do you consider yourself to be digitally literate?
Being that I put my first website up in 1993, I would say, yes, I am. Matter of fact, I do tons of digital stuff all day long.
I would agree with that, Brad. I think that you're a shining example of digital literacy, particularly for someone who's pushing 90 years old. You know, like Aaliyah said, age ain't nothing but a number. Now, when it comes to digital literacy, it's one of the goals of St. Louis City government, of course, because they got a bunch of pandemic money. And there are very few things, I think, in the modern era that could be more important than teaching people in St. Louis City to be digitally literate. So one of the things that St. Louis pandemic money was to be spent on was improving digital literacy. Of course, that grant would be given out by the St. Louis Development Corporation. But it's not that simple, Brad. It turns out that the group that got an $800,000 contract, a group called MoveWorth, got $800,000, and they haven't really started doing work yet. It turns out that the contract hasn't been finalized. But according to Jacob Barker in today's St. Louis Post-Dispatch, people are starting to sniff around and think maybe this whole thing isn't on the up and up. In fact, some of the companies that actually do real-life computer training, real-life digital training, are starting to wave a red flag or two and say, wait a minute, why did this guy, a gentleman named Bill Ray, get an $800,000 contract when he apparently has no experience doing digital literacy programs or digital literacy training. Now, Mr. Barker talks to Mr. Ray, who says, no, I have a couple clients and I've done some computer training and we don't really do that stuff now, but we're kind of learning to do it. And the way I read it, Brad, between the lines, we're getting better at it. And we're totally going to be ready to do this once the St. Louis Development Corporation finalizes this grant. So I would suggest folks take a look at Mr. Barker's story in the Post-Dispatch today, because all of these groups that are real and credible are saying, we don't understand how St. Louis Development Corp handed an $800,000 grant to this guy. Now we know he's politically connected. We know that he's done a lot of work with Charlie Dooley and a bunch of other people in St. Louis County, but it just doesn't seem like this gentleman deserves the contract. That's what the people who didn't win the contract are saying. So, Brad, I think this goes to show, among anything else, that the problem is not giving a whole bunch of money to somebody that might not be qualified. Like if you look at St. Louis city government, I don't think anybody expects hundreds of thousands of dollars will be spent on somebody who's competent. I think the issue is when you start giving it to people who are unqualified, then people who are qualified are going to say, wait a minute here. We don't understand why that guy's getting a big piece of the pie and we're not getting it. We saw this, you and I talked about this, Brad, with other St. Louis Development Corporation grants. Why is Rufus R. Jones getting $100,000 for a make-believe community development center when Naya's Neck Bones isn't getting $100,000 for hers? When one group of people start getting a big slice of the pie and somebody else is left eating the box, that's when people get mad, Brad. So $800,000 for digital literacy. Maybe you can shoot this guy an email or perhaps a piece of direct mail and ask if you could be a subcontractor.
John, I'm a little bit upset with you because of the fact that I haven't mentioned this, and the Post-Dispatch hasn't sniffed up my way yet to find out about this. But I also got an $800,000 contract from the city, and my contract is for renovation of homes. And I have to tell you that I'm going to go to Home Depot today and get a hammer, and tomorrow I'm going to practice with it. So I will be, up and ready to exercise my $800,000 contract by Monday, because I'm going to hammer nails all weekend. That's what I'm going to do. So
I love that. Hey, I got a vestibule that you can not work.
Here we go again, the city. Okay, number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
ASA, I got some good news and bad news about our lawn service, Brad. You did such a great job talking about all your lawnmowers on the show yesterday. But I got some good news, some bad news. The good news is we got all week off work next week, Brad. The bad news is we're not going to get paid. Dios mío. This story is brought to us by Brian Munoz of St. Louis Public Radio. And I am sad, but a little bit happy to tell you that many, and by many, I mean roughly 30 Latino, Latina, Latinx businesses are taking the week off work next week, SA. And you know why? Brad, guess why they're taking a week off work?
Because they're recovering from Super Bowl Sunday?
They're recovering from Super Bowl Sunday. They're going to have a lot of Corona, a lot of Modelo Especial, and they're going to teach Donald Trump a lesson. They're going to shut down the St. Louis economy, Brad. The groups that are taking the week off of work next week include, let me make sure that I get this list correctly. Not only are they restaurants, but among the 30 companies are lawn care companies and also nightclub operators. Did you know that nightclubs still exist in St. Louis, Brad? I had no idea.
Well, I'm sort of questioning the fact that in mid-February, anybody's going to miss lawn care. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah, I thought it was a unique time. I mean, nobody in their right mind, and that includes Brad Hildebrand. Brad Hildebrand might be out there tooling up his lawnmower, but the list of businesses, roughly 30 according to Munoz, include clothing boutiques, markets, nightclubs, restaurants, landscaping workers, and bakeries are participating in a strike, Brad. And they say they're going to show everyone that if you do not treat Hispanics and Latinos correctly and you do all this intimidation with your ICE agents, guess what? We're just not going to work. I think it's brilliant, Brad. Now, there'll end up being pent-up demand for, churros and tacos the next week, so I guess they'll make up for it. But I don't know. I like the idea, Brad. These boycotts always work really well. And from what I heard, Donald Trump was planning on changing his entire economic and immigration policy because that Spanish nightclub's not going to be open off of Page Avenue.
Is this a for real story or is this a joke?
No, it's a real story, yeah. And I believe it was the very top of St. Louis Public Radio to be. And here's what I love, Brad. Here's the Munoz headline, whether Brian wrote this or not. Where would St. Louis be without Latino businesses? For a week, we will find out. Now, what I love, Brad, about the entry to this story is that the beginning talks about there's some little Mexican restaurant off of Page Avenue. I looked it up. It's like at Page and Warson. And it's a place called El Guanaco. Isn't that bat dung? El Guanaco? Maybe that's guano. Anyway, this El Salvador dung restaurant, they're talking about how so many Mexicanos rely on it for lunch. But you know what? They're going to have to shut down next week to prove a point. So if you're those poor Mexican workers, let's say, and I don't mean poor literally, I just mean the poor guys that just want to come in and eat a meal at lunchtime and go back to work. Let's say their company isn't taking part in this make-believe boycott. Where are they going to go for lunch? They're going to have to go to Taco Bell. They're going to have to go to Chimmy's. You'll pay a little bit more at Chimmy's, which is a great place. But I guess my point is, Brad, their point in the beginning of the story is so many Mexicanos rely on us for lunch, man, but we're shutting down anyway.
John,
you're just punishing your clientele.
I got bad news for them because of the fact that one of the particular quickie marts that I go to, specifically at lunchtime, I'm the only guy in there speaking English. So it's not like they don't have a place to eat. I mean, it's to the point where it's me and the staff that are the only ones that are English speaking. And nothing against that. They're all very nice people. They're hardworking folks, I mean, I'm this guy that sort of crosses the boundaries between blue and white collar. You know what I mean? One minute I'm a radio station owner. The next minute I'm climbing the tower to fix something. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I
know exactly what you mean, Brad. I mean, you're a very hands-on guy.
Right.
I just think that it's what I love about these type of stories, and whether it's people that go to the Missouri Capitol and they can't wear their yarn vagina hats anymore because those are heteronormative and whatever. But let's take a look at this group of people who are protesting Donald Trump by shutting down their restaurant. So they're going to deprive themselves of, 2% of their annual income, theoretically. So they're going to take a financial hit because they want to prove a point on principle. Like, I get that. But does anybody think that the rest of us care? Like, are we supposed to care that a bunch of Mexicans are mad about immigration?
Well, the interesting thing about that is maybe I'll lengthen my list. In B or C block, I've got a story about a legislator who is doing things as preemptive strike against Donald Trump as well, too, and you'll get a kick out of this. Are we ready?
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you ready for number one?
I sure am.
Here we go.
The number one.
You had a brilliant proposal the other day, Brad, on the heels of President Donald Trump talking about relocating a bunch of Palestinians somewhere else. You decided to call that land the brand new Riviera. Brad, can you reveal the name of that land again?
MAGAza. MAGAza. You take MAGA and you take Gaza and you put a M-A in front of Gaza and you got MAGAza. And by the way, I tried to buy the domain name, but somebody beat me to it. It's already gone.
Are you serious?
Yes,
what about Gazalago? I hear that's a popular one among the White House crowd.
Here, hold on a minute. Let me see if I can find that one. Gazalago. Okay. Go ahead, and I'll see if I can buy that one.
Go ahead while you look up Gazalago. The headline from The Hill today, the D.C. publication The Hill, is essentially that GOP lawmakers and GOP senators, in their words, the plan has fallen flat with GOP senators. And I thought there was a telling quote from Senator Josh Hawley on one of your favorite topics, Brad. I like this Hawley quote. My view is that I'm very opposed to any U.S. troops on the ground there being Gaza. And I don't want to spend taxpayer dollars in Gaza. I want to spend taxpayer dollars cleaning up St. Louis, Missouri, cleaning up our nuclear radiation, helping our victims. And Brad, I would also point to the fact, I have a link up today to KFRU Radio. There's a show in Columbia in the morning called it's called A Columbia Morning, not just Columbia Morning, A Columbia Morning on KFRU. Bob Onder was on there yesterday, and Bob Onder is on the same mindset. Bob said very diplomatically, yeah, I appreciate the fresh thinking here, but I'm not inclined to spend a bunch of money overextending ourselves in international things when we need to, in Bob Onder's words, get our fiscal house in order here. So both KFRU and The Hill at the top of the website today, Brad.
Gazalago.com is taken. So somebody already beat me.
Oh, traps.
Okay. See, here's, you talk about this, the Gazalago thing and the MAGAza thing and the Trump talking about taking over the Gaza Strip. Here's Brad thinking outside the box. He's talking to the wrong group of people. Meaning that he's going to turn it into like high-end real estate, condos, beachfront, all that kind of stuff. He needs to talk to all the AI companies and say, hey, we've got this area that we can put all these server farms in. Matter of fact, we can get a fresh start. We won't have any EPA rules and regulations because there is no EPA in Gaza. We're just going to flatten this place, and we're just going to build nothing but servers, just buildings with servers in them. And we're going to take one of the nuclear power plants that's been decommissioned in the United States, move it over there, because remember, there's an interesting story. Did you know the story about that? I think is it Google that's going to restart the 3 Mile Island nuclear plant? Have you heard this story?
You're kidding me. I did not know that.
No, they're going to restart, and I'm not kidding when I say this. I'll send you the story. They're going to restart one of the reactors on the 3 Mile Island because they're going to use that to power their AI servers. So once again, we could take Gaza and turn it into, server land.
Yeah, and a lot of the pushback for digital currency, things like Bitcoin, et cetera, is that it takes too much energy. Brad, these days, if you put the name cryptocurrency in anything or AI in anything, people go nuts and cheer it. Let's make sure we say both AI servers and Bitcoin servers can be at Gazalago, a.k.a. MAGAza, as well.
But see, this is really going to go over well with the Virginia people because there's a couple interesting stories about Virginia. Virginia has quite a few of the server farms there, and the locals are complaining about the fact that their electricity rates are going up because there's demand for electricity. And not only that, they hear the hum of the server farms. So, Trump, once again, he could, Virginia's sort of a blue state. He could say, hey, you blue staters, I'm going to help you out. We're going to move all the servers over to Gaza. And you won't hear that anymore unless you go in the Mediterranean Sea on a cruise, and then you can just sit off the coast of what used to be Gaza. What would we call it? Server land? What would be a good AI land? Gaza?
Yeah, you could brainstorm that. I think we could brbrainstorm that in the breaks. And the best part is Donald Trump could just say, look, of all the great things I did, I made sure that Virginia was once again for lovers.
And we would rename the citizens of that country, instead of Palestinians, we call them Digitaltinians.
Oh, I like that, Brad. And we could make sure that all the women have a waist smaller than 32 inches, and they could all be called Virginia Slims.
And we'd make sure that they wouldn't wear comfy shoes, right?
Absolutely not. Don't make me vomit this early in the morning, Brad.
Okay. We haven't done in a while.
Oh, what haven't we done? Have we not played a Dua Lipa song yet?
John Best, he's a man of taste. He's got a thing for a certain type of grace. He don't care about diamonds or pearls. All he wants is a girl with comfortable shoes.
We haven't done that around in a while.
I'm going to play that on a certain kid to school loop that I'm making after the show, Brad, and it's always been a hit.
Okay, we have to take a break.